This is good news, Patrick.
Good.
The British car industry, directly and in the supply chain and so on, it employs the thick end of 1 million people. We are still a major car maker, albeit that most of the car makers in this country, they are actually owned by companies overseas. But putting that aside, it still generates huge tax revenue for the UK, good, skilled jobs, often in parts of the country where there aren't lots of good, skilled jobs. Let's have a look at some of the numbers. And these are from the SMMT, the Society of Motor Manufacturer and Traders, the kind of go-to place for numbers about the UK car industry. We are motoring ahead. In July, UK car production was up 31.6%. compared to July 2022. Those supply chain issues have eased. We can get hold of semiconductors. Now we're probably out of lockdown. Electric vehicles or hybrids, so-called EVs or hybrids, plug-in hybrids, that you've got a motor in there and a battery, but you also use petrol or diesel. They made up 40% of the cars made in July, so 2/5. And 85% of the cars we produced in July and throughout the year, they're actually shipped overseas. So it's not as if they're all being sold in the UK. On the contrary, but that's good. That earns us foreign exchange revenue. That keeps the exchange rate firm. Britain paying its way. And according to SMMT, and they don't just make these things up, they're very authoritative, they reckon we're on for 860,000 cars in total output for this year. That's 11% up on 2022. Not back to pre-pandemic levels when we were basically punting out over 1 million cars a year, but this is a very credible fight back by the British car-making industry.
No, indeed, and it is a reason to be cheerful, I think, isn't it? There is a lot of doom and gloom out there at the moment. I am aware of that, but I think it's important not to lose sight of things when they're going well.
Yeah, we've been reporting all day on events at Wilko, the major high street chain. Lots of people worried about their jobs, rightly so. 12,500 employees, 400 branches. I personally think a lot of those employees will keep their jobs. I think a lot of the stores will be taken over by other discount chains. But just to go back to cars, it's interesting, Patrick. I said there that 2/5 of cars made in the UK are now EVs, electric vehicles or hybrids. We've got this ban looming on the horizon 2030 where new petrol and diesel cars will be outlawed. Let's just say that again. Okay?
Yeah,
that wasn't a mistake.
Yeah.
New petrol and diesel cars will be outlawed in this country, apparently by 2030. It's not going to happen. It will be pushed back. And one reason it will be pushed back is because the public isn't buying it. You've now got, with all these EVs being produced, of course, the car-making industry is going nuts for this stuff, but you've actually got dealers now saying there are too many electric vehicles.
Yeah.
We can't sell them. This is Virtue Motors. They include brands including Bristol Street Motors, other marks that we know very, very well. They're now saying the supply of new and electric vehicles is outstripping demand, forcing manufacturers to slash prices in an effort to shift stock. Recent increased supply of new EVs appears to be exceeding retail demand, creating an imbalance in pipeline inventory, the company said. Even Elon Musk, Teslas, they are now being discounted. And a lot of this, I think, is because they're out of range for lots of ordinary families anyway in terms of the price. And that word range looms large because of so-called range anxiety. Often the amount of distance you can travel on one charge isn't what the manufacturers say it is. It's often quite a lot less in reality. And, of course, there aren't nearly enough charging points being rolled out. So we are doing well. We are producing lots of cars. We are motoring towards that pre-pandemic level of 1 million cars a year. We may get there in the next couple of years. That's a really good comeback because a lot of people said, no way will the British car industry come back. But a lot of these EVs we're making, there doesn't seem to be demand for them.
No, this is it. But it's also about impacts on people's lives. On Tuesday, I was in Bromley and people were just talking there about the impact on people's lives. ULEZ cameras going up near a cemetery, so it's going to cost you £12.50 to visit your mum's grave, for goodness sake, which is, I think, disgusting. And then you've got the general impact on people's lives that it's going to have taking different routes or the cost of it to local businesses. Are they going to see a lower footfall because fewer people are coming in? And now you're looking at, electric vehicles as well. You're going to have to start thinking, taking more pre-planning and time out of your day. Is this charged up? Have I got enough range? What about if something unexpected happens? I've suddenly got to go to the other end of the country. And people, like you said, aren't buying it. They don't want it.
Well, let me say something heretical. I've done the reporting bit. Let me give you a bit of an opinion bit as somebody that's followed the British car industry for 30-odd years. I'm older than I look. I don't reckon that EVs are necessarily the way to go. All right, the governments across the world, they're throwing subsidies at EVs. Manufacturers are really going for it. Does it really make sense to transport around a half-ton battery?
No.
Does that make sense? Does it make sense to build cars, EVs, that use 5 times more copper than conventional cars, that use these rare earths, these minerals that are found in the Central African Republic,
and who's mining
China, difficult places that aren't always, with all respect, friendly towards the West? I think other technologies will break through, and it strikes me that the government, by not just backing EVs, but pretty much saying you have to have one by law by 2030 if you want to buy a new car. That's never the way to go. One final example. Do you remember, maybe you're a bit young, there were those fluorescent light bulbs. You had traditional light bulbs. They were banned in 2007 by the EU. We had to all get fluorescent ones. They turned out to be useless. A few years later, hey presto, technology came up with LED, far better, and we had to throw away, having been forced to buy all those fluorescent light bulbs. I've got a drawer full of them at home.
I'm not surprised. I mean, this is the thing as well. For anybody who's got faith in this stuff, I'll just ask you, do you have faith in politicians a lot of the time? Because those are the people who are making a lot of these decisions. And if you answer that question no, then I'm afraid probably the future is not looking particularly bright if you're backing all of these big green agendas. But Liam, thank you.